marketing company. These are also known as referral marketing or network marketing companies. Most likely you've had some sort of interaction with one of these before. At the very least, you probably had some friend on Facebook start posting about this amazing job opportunity they have where they're making all this money on the side with an awesome product. Things sound great, but it's hard to know what exactly is going on because it's very vague. What I'm going to try and do with this video here today is really break it down, give a brief overview of the structure, and help give some pointers on how to deal with these companies, how to know exactly what's going on. First off, what even is an MLM? The main characteristic that all MLMs share is instead of having a normal sales force, they rely on this third-party network of contract sellers or consultants. These companies sell all sorts of things. Oftentimes they're a product with a very strong lifestyle component. They can be things like health products, makeup, clothing, knives, insurance, supplements, all sorts of stuff. The reason they do that is because then they don't have to have a sales network to support because that's expensive. So here we have a simplified drawing of an MLM structure. You have the multi-level pyramid of distributors here. You join at the bottom as a new person. You really have two ways you can make money. The first being selling product. The second being actually recruiting people to sell under you. Because in most MLMs, you get paid for the product that they buy as well. This is sometimes referred to as a downline. And we'll talk a bit more in the rest of this video about how these actually play out. One thing I want to go over first is something that you often hear talked about in conjunction with MLMs, pyramid schemes. These can look very similar, but in a classic pyramid scheme, there actually is no product. The only way that you can make money is by recruiting. So people join, they pay money to the person above them, and then they try to get people to join underneath them. And this is something that could work if there was an absolutely infinite amount of people who would join this company. But there isn't. So what ends up happening is the people at the bottom get screwed out of their money. Because of this, pyramid schemes are actually completely illegal. You can see the similarity though, right? And this is why people often compare the two, and MLMs honestly end up having a lot of the same problems. So we've talked just a little bit about the structure, but let's get into a few of the big questions that people have about MLMs. The first being is, can you actually make any money from being involved? This is something that MLMs like to really push, which makes complete sense, right? Because if you think it's a great opportunity, you want to join, you get in, you build the pyramid, great for them. But the actual truth is quite different. And if we actually look at the numbers, it can be kind of a shock. There's one study that is actually hosted by the FTC where they looked at over 350 different major MLMs and found that actually 99% of people who join lose money, which is pretty wild, right? You don't hear that because the companies, well, they have no reason for you to know that because then you wouldn't join. The crazy thing is you don't hear that from the other people who are involved in the organization who are actually the sellers. And the reason you don't hear that is because those people want you to join underneath them. They want to bring in referrals. Oftentimes they're underwater. They're losing money from this, but they can say, hey, if I bring in referrals, I could finally be in the positive. Let's talk for a few minutes about why it's actually so hard to make money selling for an MLM. There's really a few key factors that make it different than a normal sales job and make it harder. One being, you don't have normal sales support from a company. You don't have any sort of predefined territory. You don't have any sort of leads to follow up on. So really all you're left with are your friends and your coworkers and your family. And that's a hard thing to build a full sales pipeline off of. The second is that the products are almost always very expensive compared to what you can buy just through a store, which makes sense if you think about it because built into the price has to be enough to support the different levels of the selling structure. Third, you actually have to buy these products before you sell them. It's not like a normal job where you sell it and then you get commission. Like, you actually own all this product. And if you don't move it, all that risk is on you. And at the same time, the company is really always pushing to buy more. You know, if you have a bigger inventory, it'll be easier for you to sell. So there's a lot of pressure there. And then last, when it boils down to it, from the company's point of view, you're really not treated as a seller. You are the customer. You're the person who is buying the product. Remember when you were a little kid and your school had some sort of fundraiser? You were going to go out and you were going to sell popcorn tins or calendars or magazine subscriptions, right? And you got this list of the prizes you could win by being a salesperson. You always went home and you're like, man, I'm going to kill this. I'm going to get all these sales. I'm going to take home a PlayStation. Do you remember how that actually panned out? Not very well, right? You got home, you maybe got your mom, you maybe got one neighbor to buy something, but it's hard. You know, it's hard to sell just to your immediate network. You can see where I'm going with this, right? MLMs are basically the grown-up version of that same sort of thing, except this time, you don't have being a cute little kid on your side. Now moving on, let's talk about one idea that MLMs love to use. And that's that by joining an MLM, becoming a consultant, you can be an entrepreneur. You can have your own job, your own schedule, you're the boss. Which is a great idea, right? I mean, who doesn't want to be the boss of their own life? And while it's true that, you know, you can set your own hours, you can be flexible in a lot of ways, let's take a look back at that structure from before. It's clear that you are not running your own business here. What's happening is you are joining a very large sales organization on the very bottom rung, and you're doing it in an unsupported way. We're going to end today talking through a few tips on how to interact with MLMs in real life. The first, if you're wondering if something is an MLM or not, there's a few things to look for. First, hype. If people are way too excited, or if things look too good to be true, odds are they probably are. The second, there's always a hard sell. People try and push hard, push fast, join now, don't worry about talking to your spouse, you know, don't worry about it, take out a loan, just, you gotta move now because now's the time. Kind of crazy pressure. And then unclear details. Oftentimes it's very just vague what's actually going on here, and if you push to know the details, you won't find much. So it's very important to actually push and say, hey, wait, how much are the average rep actually making here? What are the costs looking like? How often do you turn people over? And how hard it is to find those facts can actually tell you a lot about a company. The harder it is to find that information, probably the worse it actually is. But oftentimes, even if you do get these numbers, they might be slightly misleading. And then sometimes they'll even go as far as to say, hey, here's the projected, here's what you could earn. And then last of all, bad press. The fact is that most MLMs have some sort of bad press out there. Either it's a group of people who have been burned, or even legal problems are a big thing for a lot of MLMs. The overwhelming evidence and thousands of people before you have already proven exactly where this path goes. It leads to crushed expectations, strained relationships, and lost time and money. If you really need that extra dough on the side, look at something like driving Uber. Honestly, anything else besides joining an MLM. Now, one last note, I do want to make sure I mention that there are a lot of great people who are involved in MLMs. But you know, that's really the problem with MLMs. It takes people who have great intentions, who want to help provide for their family, who want to own their lives, and it puts them in this no-win situation within a structure that really rewards not being completely truthful. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this was helpful in explaining a little bit more what's going on with MLMs. You can share this with anyone who you know who might be involved with MLM or thinking about it. And hopefully this at least puts them down the path to do a bit more research before jumping in.